Rolling right on a keeper, up across the 15, cuts left at the 20, on the room at the 30, headed to the near sideline, one man to beat, makes the move at midfield, coming to the near side at the 30, he's at the 20, he's at the 10, 5, touchdown, Kentucky!
Only 2 games left, Aaron, in the football season. Welcome into Believe in Kentucky. Aaron Gershon from the Cat's Paws, Vinny Hardy here. Jalen Whitlow hops on when he can. He's still coaching and doing his thing on the high school football scene. But we're here another episode of the podcast, Believe in Kentucky, Believe Podcast Network, live streaming on YouTube. We got the Facebook page as well. And then we'll put the link to YouTube on Twitter. Follow us, subscribe, like, all that good stuff. Go to Apple Podcasts and write a little review, do a 5-star. Listen, BBN, we have Cards fans and Vols fans that have taken the time to go and write a review on this podcast. So if you're listening, get a chance, just give us a little review. It helps grow, helps other people find it, and all that good stuff. And we appreciate it. We don't ask for a whole lot of stuff, but a little quick review, AG, ain't nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong at all. And we always appreciate that. And look, it's still the busiest time of year. I know there are only 2 football games left, but December is going to be wild for that program. And obviously we're, just entering the heart of basketball season here, still got about a month plus till SEC play, but some big time non-con games coming up in December. Obviously this basketball team is a lot of fun to watch, and we'll get into that, get into what's going on the football side too. And it's the busiest time of year. There's going to be the most to talk about early the month of December, probably up until February and March when you get toward postseason basketball. So busy time of year.
And so it used to be that debate, like used to have March Madness opening day. The NBA was moving towards the playoffs, but I think this time of year has it beat though. I mean, Football World Series just happened. Hockey's cranked up, college basketball, the NBA. I think this time of year is a little more hectic than the springtime.
Yeah, no question about it. This time is wild in the sports world, and specifically the college sports world when basketball and football collide for the month of November. And unfortunately, it's not the season Kentucky football has wanted, and usually these November games mean a lot more. And a lot of these press conferences with Mark Stoops, a lot of the conversations are more about the future than these last 2 football games, which it's just the reality of what's going on with the program. And I understand it's frustrating and upsetting, but it is what it is. But still 2 games left until a huge December. And then, like I said, I mean, basketball, roughest place to be right now. That team is a fun watch. It's a fun product, and still a lot to work on for them to be even better. So lots to love about what's going on over there, and hopefully there'll be lots to like on the football side again soon. I don't I don't blame anyone with pessimism going into December if things are going to stay the same coaching wise, but we've seen it at other places that it seems like all hope is lost. A big portal class kind of turns the program around, at least for a year. We've seen it with 2 teams in the SEC, in South Carolina and Vandy this season, where, I'm not sure if Clark Lee or Shane Beamer were really on the hot seat going into the year, but I think the fan bases probably had lost a lot of confidence in both those guys. I know, Beamer specifically, talking to some of the guys I know that cover South Carolina, there was talk, going into that Kentucky game, like maybe he'll get this year or next. And you know what? They kicked ass in the portal, and they're having a great season. I think they're 7-3, and pretty sure they clinched a winning. I think they finished 5-3 in the SEC, if I'm not mistaken. So credit to them. They had an awesome season. They're having an awesome season, and Vandy is having the best season they've had in quite some time. Obviously, had an historic win over an Alabama team that has been pretty damn good since that game. So. There's always hope in that realm, but we'll get into all of it in December with the future stuff and talk a little bit about the developments that happened today later on in this episode. But stick with us. This is it's a hectic time, to say the least.
Yeah, we kind of pick which way to go, and as far as football, like you said, the developments that did happen today, so we can jump.
Yeah,
on
we'll start. We'll backtrack. We'll start with the newsier side and then get to basketball, which is the fun side.
Yeah, let's do that. And look, you talked about how hectic it's going to be. Talking about the future, Mark Stoops calling show, talking about raising money and recruiting, and putting the roster together and retention and all of that, more so than Texas and Louisville.
Yeah.
And you said 2 or 3 episodes ago about how crazy December was gonna be, and nothing has happened to change that. And depending on how these next 2 games go, the level of craziness can even ratchet up more depending on how bad these next 2 weeks are. It's that's kind of where that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we had the developments today that you're talking about. So I'll let you go ahead and speak on the latest.
Yeah, we'll start with what came out today, and that was that Vince Marrow was tied to the Southern Miss job. I think Justin Rowland put it out first, and then it kind of quickly got kiboshed. I mean, I think Matt Jones, who, for anyone who doesn't know, is very close to Vince Marrow. I don't think that's too big of a secret. I don't think I'm breaking any news on that one. Pretty much said yes, that happened, but Vince already turned them down. And it's like, okay, well, first of all, I talked with some Southern Miss people, not the 2 guys that were on our podcast back in August, but some of the other ones I connected with before that football game, for the season opener. Yeah. And talked to a national person too that I trust, and there wasn't much smoke there, to be honest with you. Maybe something happened that they missed, or that just kind of went under the cracks, and maybe it was a quick, hey, you interested? No, I'm not. Who knows? But that fit to me doesn't make all that much sense. I mean, you look at Vince, his recruiting areas are Ohio, Michigan, and Kentucky. Like, it would make much more. I mean, there's some MAC jobs open right now. Central Michigan just came open today with Jim McElwain announcing he's retiring. Ball State is open. Like, if he's going to look for a head coaching job, I'll listen more closely if those 2, are pursuing him. But to me, that says that says at least he's putting his name out there, and for the first time in a while, he might be interested in leaving. And look, he's not getting a raise this time. Like, he's gotten all the raises in the world. Kentucky, if they can't afford it right now, and I don't think anyone on the staff, there's some great coaches on the staff. Maybe outside of like Chris Collins, who I think just got extended. Like, I don't think anyone really deserves a big pay grade after this season. I don't think anyone at all. So I don't think that's the play here. I think there may, for the first time, potentially be something there that Vince might be looking to get out. Not trying to speak for him, and he has been like the most loyal assistant coach in college football the last 10 years. And obviously Michigan State, when Mel Tucker was there, who's a close friend of his, came at him really, really hard with a lot of money, and he chose to stay. So, like, this is a guy that loves this place genuinely.
That was a good decision.
Yeah, that was a good decision.
Someone just saying, but
yeah, no, it was. But look, I mean, there's stuff and Brad White's name has been out there. We heard it with the Florida State DC job. I'm just not quite sold on that, but like, he's a guy who played his college football at Wake, and he has ties to Rhode Island, and there's a lot of jobs in the American that kind of fit that geography opening up, right? East Carolina is open. Charlotte, I believe, just came open.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Florida Atlantic. I think Florida Atlantic's going to go after a bigger fish than that with some of the money they have. But their Temple's open, so like that could be something. So, and I think the fact that these guys are even letting things get out, one, it could lead you to think maybe there is something going on with Mark Stoops and his decision that we just, he's obviously, he said 0%. We talked about it last week here. It's not 0%. Like, it's probably 70 to 80. Yeah, but it's not 0. I do think, just naturally where he's at, where this program's at, how fed up. This dude is not happy with the trajectory and where college football is. Like, he will never deny that, I don't think. And he'll say, oh, we got to adapt and all that, but they're not adapting well. They're falling behind. They're they've seen South Carolina pass them this season.
Mhm.
Vanderbilt, I'm still like, I want to see it for another year, especially because I don't think Diego Pavia is going to win that lawsuit, and he'll probably be gone. But Vanderbilt passed them at least this season. Missouri passed them last season and did it again this year. Like they are down to like in the 14, 13, 15 range in the SEC hierarchy right now, and that's a problem. So does he really want to come back next year when next year is going to be a rebuilding year regardless? And like we'll get it. I don't want to go down that whole rabbit hole, but like just look at how many guys are seniors or fifth-year guys on defense, and then you have 4 starters on offense, 3 on the offensive line, and then Demesu McCarnbay. Like that, next year is not going to be an easy season. And you're going to probably have a quarterback battle going into next season. Who knows who's going to leave in the portal? Like I don't know. I think the math just is not mathing for me for this to be a 0% chance that Mark Stoops is coming. 0% chance he doesn't come back. I just think that he's got more to think about and more to talk about behind the scenes, and the fact that these assistants, Brad White too. I mean, I pointed out how loyal Vince Marrow is, but
yeah,
Brad White had the chance to go to LSU when Brian Kelly got there. He even went down to Baton Rouge and interviewed in person, scoping it out, and he decided to stay at Kentucky over LSU. Yeah. So it's just the fact that those 2 assistants, those are the names with the biggest smoke around them right now. To me, that's a red flag of maybe there is something more going on behind the scenes we don't know. But putting a bow on today's developments, I don't think Southern Miss is the job. I don't think he's going to Southern Miss, and I don't think. Again, I'm not sold on that being too big of a deal. It just the fit is not there for me, at least. I mean, John Summerall, yeah, he would have been a home run there if they had got him from Troy, right? If they had made that move here, but he wasn't. That's a lateral job in the Sun Belt. So I just think it's very not worrisome because look, I think a lot of people would welcome change, but if you're a Kentucky football fan and you're going to be monitoring Twitter in December and seeing what happens with this coaching staff, like it is very interesting that Brad White and Vince Marrow, who have been so loyal and have been really good at one, keeping their name out of things, and 2, just not really that interested in leaving their names out there more than usual. And that's usually some agent talk and agent things happening, and they want their names out there. That's not it's not something these coaches try to keep secret for the most part.
Mm-hmm. And then with Stoops flirting with Texas A&M, whatever happened with that, a lot of those guys allegedly weren't wanting to go at that time, right?
Right, and they're probably
he was shocked that some of these people didn't want to just follow him and pick up and go to College Station.
Yeah, there was some of that chatter going around. So
now to flip to the 180 where maybe there's a lot of smoke. There's, like you said, names are getting leaked out with some of the most loyal assistants. Big dog day one, and
Brad White for
Brad
7
White
years.
left the Colts to come here and
left the Colts, and again he turned down he didn't turn down Missouri, which is probably a lateral move. He turned down LSU. That's like a top 5 program in the country money wise. Yeah, it's just it's something. It's something to keep an eye on. I just think again it's going to be a super eventful month. Both on the coaching staff and player personnel, but. If you do retain Marks, just say, most things stay the same. Just think about what's ahead. Again, like you're defensively, you're losing guaranteed Jamin Dumas-Johnson, Maxwell Harrison, Deion Walker, Zion Childress, Octavius Oxendine, Trayvon Ripka. I asked about Derek Jackson Monday. Yeah. He does have that year of eligibility, but sounded like he was kind of had his mindset on leaving. Maybe this injury changes that and you get a surprise Derek Jackson back, but wouldn't count on that. So you're losing up to what? That's like 7 or 8 guys. And then not to mention like a Christian Story who's on the 2 deep is in his last year. And then whoever decides to portal out, like gosh, that's a lot of depth on defense. And then offensively, you're guaranteed to lose Gerald Mincey, Eli Cox, Marcus Cox, Demisumo Karnbay, and then I think Jamori Macklin, the day after the season will hit you with that portal note because he was underutilized and just proved it again against Murray State with a one-handed touchdown again. Like, hello, why haven't I been used all year?
Yeah.
So look, they're if Mark Stoops is coming back, he's got to put his head down, do a ton of work. They're going to need. I mean, you look at what they're going to need in the portal. Like, they're going to probably need 3 to 4 offensive linemen. They're going to need, I would say, another running back for depth purposes. We'll see what happens in the receiver room. They're definitely going to need defensively. They're going to need edge help. JJ Weaver's another name I didn't mention.
Yeah.
They're going to need edge rushers, multiple, I would say. Mm-hmm. They're going to need inside linebackers, potentially multiple. They're going to need corners because, God, their cornerback depth has gotten crushed this year, and you're losing Max. They're probably going to need a safety. Like, they're going to need D-line help. Like, and then it's a mess. Like, they are in a messy situation. And if I'm Mark Stoops at age 57, and I hate the way that college football is nowadays, and my brother retired at a similar age and seems to be enjoying life and doing good things outside of coaching, and even still, coaching the XFL stuff, whatever he was doing for a little bit. And not to mention, Mark Stoops already has like off the field business ventures with the RD1, the bourbon company. I forget exactly what his role is in it, but he's making money off that. And it's just, if I were him, I know what I would do. I get $9 million. It's hard to pass up, but I know what I would do. But you know what? We'll see.
Yeah, it's just, and he was talking. Was on his call-in show about how, as far as your roster, he was saying, well, at least in the pros, there's a cap, and
college,
but with so many needs now, imagine if there was a cap, you couldn't stay under the cap with as many holes as you're trying to fill if you have to portal for all that. So in a sense, it's a good thing there isn't a cap with as many holes is going to be filled or they need to be filled when the season.
I mean, this is going to be a roster turnover, and they're staying at 85, which I don't think is that big of a deal. That's always been the number, right? So it's just, look, they have so much work to do. It's a rebuild, and look, if they're running it back next year with the same staff, unless again they have South Carolina kicked ass and took names in the portal. I underestimated them completely going into the year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Kyle Kennard is a top 5 edge rusher in the sport. Rocket Sanders is healthy again and playing at that all SEC caliber level. They got some impact makers, and look at, again, 7-3, 5-3 in the SEC. Credit to them. Vanderbilt with Diego Pavia and the tight end they brought in from New Mexico State. Like, what are they, 6-4 at Vandy? Like, that's really good. And just all over the country, you see teams that just hit. Look at what Louisville did last year, and you're not going to become. You don't want to become Louisville. The reason I say that is nothing. I just don't think they hardly touch high school anymore, and I don't think you can completely abandon that. But Louisville last year, coming in year 1 under Jeff Braun, they had some big hits in the portal. Like, who was the wide receiver that went on to the NFL? That had a really good year for them last year. Man, I'm blanking on his name.
Jordan.
No, not Jordan Watkins. He was the one who left there.
Mm-hmm.
What's his name? I'm going to get it. Jamari Thrash. That's what I'm thinking of. They had some really big portal additions that made an impact, and that was the reason they were able to go 10-3 or whatever they were, 10-4 when they lost the bowl game too. You can Tulane with John Summerall, who everyone wants here. How do you think he built Tulane back in 1 year? Because I know they'd been good under Willie Fritz, but they lost a hell of a lot to Willie Fritz. And look, Willie Fritz is doing a pretty good job at Houston too, so it was kind of like a win-win there. So it's just Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. How do you think he does it every year? Like, you got to hit in the portal, and like you saw it at Florida State, right? Here's the opposite: if you fail in the portal and you get pieces that either underperform or just didn't do enough work, you could have a terrible season. And that's what happened at Florida State. Like DJ Ugalagale, I don't want to mispronounce his name, not trying to be disrespectful when I said it that way. Terrible. Like, it didn't work out. Misevaluation. So you have to not only get in the portal and get a bunch of bodies, but they need to be studs. That you need at least some studs. And, Kentucky early on in the portal game, they did that. Wan'Dale Robinson, Will Levis, they changed the trajectory of the program. Jacquez Jones, Dare Rosenthal that year. I mean, an incredible haul. Those are the studs. Like, you need a class like that. And now that everyone is doing this, it's a lot harder to do.
Yeah. And even, you talk about we underestimated South Carolina. I mean, Billy Napier kept his job when nobody thought that was going to happen.
Yeah. And they've done it the other way.
Kentucky played a huge role in him keeping his job, and then he goes out and smokes LSU as well. So,
I think Ole Miss this week. I really do. But they've done it the other way, which I actually have even more respect for, right? And that's another thing, by the way, that Kentucky, I talked about getting past. Florida passed you again, which, look, Florida – it's Florida. They were never going to be dead for long. But what Florida's done that's so impressive is they're doing it with a bunch of young dudes that they developed from high school. Like, Lagway's a hit immediately. The running back, Jaden Baugh, he obviously torched Kentucky, had a huge run in that LSU game. He looks like a real player. All their wide receivers, Wilson, Badger, forgetting the other kid's name. They have a trio there of really good wide receivers. Like, all those guys are homegrown guys. They're Caleb Banks, Warren Sapp. Like, they have homegrown guys all over that roster. And, they were able to do an okay job at filling in the portal. But they're kind of like that. They're kind of the opposite of what Kentucky needs to do. Like, that would be your ideal way to build things. But you're not at Florida. You're not at Texas A&M. You're not at these places where the money's there to get 5 stars and high 4s. So the way, again, we've talked about it on this show plenty. And, I've heard a lot of people kind of bring up the same point and ask Mark Stoops about it point blank. Like, you can't do the recruit and develop thing as much anymore, where you bring in 2-star Josh Allen and low 3-star DBs like Derek Beatty and Chris Westry and develop them. And you just can't anymore, because either those guys are going to leave via the portal, or they're going to stay and get passed up for a portal guy. And then they're just you're not going to invest in them as much as you need to. And then they're not going to transform to what Kentucky was able to do with some of those guys in the past. So I think the team, like, you look at what South Carolina did. You look at Indiana to an extent. You look at what, who's the other one I mentioned in there? Less Vanderbilt, because it was more so the quarterback. And I don't think if Mark Stoops comes back, there's going to be changes at quarterback. But I really think you look at what South Carolina did and you say, okay, what are my needs and where do I need the studs like that? And I do everything I can to get those guys. And that's where, the whole other part of this is, and we don't really know it's hard to tell where the truth is and hard to tell exactly how dire a situation is, but there's also a funding thing that Mark Stoops loves to point out. And I know it's nauseating, but if he keeps talking about it, it probably means the money's not where it needs to be to go get those type of studs. And that's another problem. So it's not like I'm saying, oh, you got to go out and get studs, but you have to pay for them. It's not like you can just go recruit them and hope they like your pitch. Like, that's just not how it works anymore. Now it's a free agency, and it's not, it's not only a scheme pitch, but it's a money pitch. And, South Carolina is a better NIL situation than Kentucky is. So it's just, again, if I'm Mark Stoops, I'm sitting and I'm taking in everything I just said. I know he's thinking about it times 10.
Yeah.
Like, that's overwhelming, man. I don't know if I could do it another year. And maybe, another part of this too, like, the John Summerall angle is interesting from the aspect of, like, Kentucky might be the only SEC opening this year. Like, I don't think Auburn's given up on Hugh Freeze yet. I don't think Napier's not going anywhere. He's honestly earned to stay.
Yeah.
I don't think their Venables or Kelly are getting fired.
Sam Pittman.
Pittman is the one that'll be interesting, but
Mm-hmm.
they had a better year this year, and they've been. I mean, they got a huge win against a good Tennessee team. They hung around with Texas.
Mm-hmm.
They have a really nice young quarterback.
Yeah.
That could have been Kentucky's if Buchanan was here in December, but whatever.
Mm-hmm. See, that's just
like I don't know. So
crazy.
wouldn't you you could, if you look at, there's no Power 4 jobs open yet. Obviously, that's going to change soon. But Kentucky could be like a top job open this offseason. Don't you want to kind of take advantage of that? And I know Kentucky shouldn't and won't fire Mark Stoops, but it's just another reason to have those conversations with them and just be like, are you 1,000% sure? Because, and the thing is, if he decides to leave after next year, then Auburn's probably going to be open. I don't see them turning it around. Arkansas probably would be open if it's not open now. Oklahoma, by then, they'll probably be open.
Wow.
LSU, if LSU is mid again next year, Brian Kelly's gone.
Yep, they don't mess around. And then you'll be that much further down the list of
you go from the number 1 job or a top 5 job that's open to number 5 in your conference.
Which is the story of life,
right?
Recruiting. Hey, we're 25th and still 12th in the SEC.
Exactly. I mean, literally, I had it in front of me. They're 26th in the country. Their freshman class is coming in, and in the SEC, they are. This should be interesting. Yeah. They are. Come on, wait for it. They're 12th.
That's what, yeah.
Out of Florida, which is kind of surprising.
Mm-hmm.
Out of Florida, Arkansas, Mississippi State, and Vandy. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's just, just to, like you said, it is overwhelming just when you look at it and really analyze it and let it sink in where they are. Yeah.
Yeah. They're in a very tough situation.
Mm-hmm. And
the questions are just not going to go away until the results better, there's a regime change. It's that simple. And look, I have a ton of respect for Mark Stoops. I think he's the best coach in program history. I don't think there are many people that could do what he did here, given what he had to take over. But we saw it on the basketball side. Everything runs its course, and everything, everyone, just needs a fresh start or just a recharge battery type thing. And I think we're getting near that point. And the toughest part of it all, of the whole part of this, is $9 million is a crap ton of money. And it's hard to walk away from that. I can't imagine. And another thing that's probably, I don't want to get personal because I don't know his situation, but he's a guy who's extremely wealthy that just went through a divorce. Those are costly, man. I mean, I've experienced it firsthand in my family. So those are costly, so $9 million's different to everybody out there. So when it comes to these, the rich crowd or the famous crowd, everyone, their way of their need of $9 million are all different. Some people it's toilet paper, and other people it's I really need that. So you just don't know exactly where he's at with that. And
how much of it's already spent before he got, or how much he has to fork over.
Yeah, so that probably makes it just makes it that's just another thing that makes it that much more complicated of a situation. So.
And here, down there at the Tennessee game a couple weeks ago, talking to the Tennessee fans, and of course they're, got more money in NIL, enough stuff to spend, and all of them are looking at Texas and A&M and all their resources, and Texas runs circles around us, and we're looking at Tennessee wish we could get to where y'all are, and and they're just a couple rungs up the ladder on us, And Texas is way on up at the top, and that's where everybody's looking. And they're looking at Texas, and we'd like to have $8 million to spend on a quarterback. Like, yo,
yeah, it's I'd say, look, college sports has changed forever. It is what it is. Mark Stoops has said, you basically adapt or you leave. And I don't think it. I don't think they haven't adapted. I just think they've their financial situation, like, is just where it's just never going to be in the top half of the league.
Yeah,
it's just not. So that is I was kind of an excuse, but kind of low hanging fruit. But the problem is they've had some portal guys. They've it's not like they haven't tried in the portal. They've had some misses. Like, I hate to call out names, but like Marcus Cox was supposed to be your stud starting left tackle. No, it didn't happen. Like, he wasn't very good. Devin Leary was the #1 quarterback transfer. He was okay.
yeah.
He wasn't a difference maker.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this year, Gerald Mincey, experienced FCC starter, wasn't very good, and then he got hurt, unfortunately. Like, it just they've had misses, and it set them back.
Yeah, and then you mentioned the retirements of a lot of depth guys, a few weeks ago, which, do they get to start or not? But are they depth? Yes. And were they development can't be as drawn out as it was, but they were in the process of being developed and possibly worked in for spot duty or filling slots or depth, which they don't have, So yeah, all that, just so many factors all kind of hitting at the same time, and that's where we are, I guess.
Yeah. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of reasons for what's happening and what's why they've taken this step back, but it's not gonna be like, it's just, and fans know it. I'm not saying anyone thinks it. I mean, maybe there's more optimism in the building than I think there is, or outsiders might think, but like, it's just not getting better overnight unless they go, like I said, get some real studs and have a amazing portal haul, and either Connor Bully, like, he showed stuff. It was Murray State, but he showed things. Like, that's something to get excited about for sure. Like, I don't want to poo-poo that just because they played a crappy team. Like, he showed you some things, and behind the scenes, apparently he's had a really, really good season, just improving. And you have him for 4 years, assuming he doesn't portal, and I don't think he will. Like, there's some young stubs like Jamarian Wilcox. If you keep him, that's a dude. Hard to do more, showing you things. Like, it's not all doom or gloom.
Yeah, you're on the glass half full
right
side now.
Right, but there's not enough there to be where it's like, okay,
let's go.
Yeah, like in the NFL, like, there are teams like that are quote unquote every year that it's like, oh, they were just a quarterback away. Like, we see it with the Texans last year. We see it this year with the Commanders. Like, every year there's that rookie or free agent signing that comes in and team's fixed. Rams, Matthew Stafford comes in, they win the Super Bowl. That's not the case here. Like, they need a lot. This is a program that needs to rebuild, and doing it with a coach who's the longest tenured guy in the SEC, like, I would love to know if that's ever happened, where a guy who's in like his second decade at a place had to completely rebuild and then actually work. And we saw it with Cal. It didn't work. He had to do the same thing, and he kind of refused doing it. He tried. Honestly, he did kind of try, because he went old that one year where it was Reeves, Toppin, Oscar, and I know they had Chris and Kaysen, but they had Lance Ware. Like, they had some old dudes on that. Like, he even tried. It just doesn't work when you're at the same place for a decade. It just usually doesn't. I can't think of one off the top of my head where it has.
So, assuming he comes back next year, you're saying that this will be the first year you have the same OC and
I know.
And quarterback
Since Terry Wilson and Eddie Grant.
Eddie. Wow.
Which,
Man.
look, that could be good. Again, that's one of those half glass full things where that could be a good thing to have continuity because they.
We see what it's like without it. So
so maybe like that's one thing where it's like, okay, that's something I guarantee you they'll talk about over and over again all off season. But that's not enough.
Right.
Again, it's not like it's not. That's not your one. You're not one thing away. Where other places. You can say that about other programs, like that they're one step away from, even Kentucky going into 2021. What did they need? They needed to be more balanced on offense. That was the whole talking point all off season, and they had their, I think it's tough to say. I would say that team was probably better than 18 just because the offense was better.
Mm-hmm.
I think you had better players on the 18 team. I think 21 was just like they just dominated type thing because they had that balance on offense where, in 18 they had to, they still had to they barely got by Vandy because the offense, scored 14 points.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, you're not in that off season. If you were in that situation, I could live with a lot of like small changes being made and you'll be fine. But this is an overhaul that's needed. And I don't know, like a guy who's been doing it so long, like, is he really going to adapt and just change everything here? I don't see it, man. We have living proof of it on this campus, of it failing. And then obviously they go to a change and looks pretty damn good now because they've changed.
Yeah. And no slip last night, no letdown. But had a layoff. had a layoff, and I'm just comparing them now to the women who had a 2-day turnaround and came out flat, and it was kind of predictable. I don't know.
I
don't know if anybody thought it would be that long for them to flip the switch and get the win.
Yeah.
They did, and good job. But you had a longer layoff between Duke and Lipscomb.
Yeah.
But still, you didn't come out flat just because it was a lesser opponent. 97-68, up 17 at halftime. Pope was kind of trying to find stuff to critique. To me, now I'm not looking at the way he was. Lipscomb had a lot of good looks. And Travis Ford even said on the broadcast, they had a lot of open shots that they just were throwing up brick after brick after brick after brick. So I don't know, maybe the coaching staff will see that, or maybe they think, well, they're cool and that's what we wanted. And we had, we were hoping those guys were shooting. And but anyway, you blew them out. You didn't come out, and as all the guys, the Cowboys guys talk about, even when Dallas was good, play with your food and not blow out a team that you're supposed to blow out. They beat them last night like they were supposed to beat them, You got Trent Noah and Travis Perry coming in with like 6 minutes left in the game.
Yeah, they whipped them. And look, like Lipscomb, yes, you're supposed to do that to Lipscomb. There's no question. But like Lipscomb, I think they're projected to win the not terrible league, and they gave Arkansas a tough time. I mean, there was a 4-point game with 7:30 left. Now Arkansas has been, we know how it goes with Cal teams, but clearly, like it wasn't a terrible Lipscomb team that you just really. I mean, I think they started the game on a 26 run, and the game never got closer than 10. Like they just completely dominated them from the opening jump, and like you said, like after the game, Mark Pope was looking for things to critique. Like he was like, we only took 25 threes. Not good enough. Not us.
Yes.
The 10 assists, like, why they had 10 assists? Because they were making every shot that was wide open. So it was like, you trade that all day. So look, I was thoroughly impressed with the not letting down at all. I think there are the two things I can think that led to that are, one, the experience factor. This team is old. They're not going to get rattled by anything. They're not going to read too much into any one win or any one loss. Like, I think this is going to be a team all year that kind of has a short-term memory, right? When they inevitably have a tough loss or they get the break, even if they get the brakes blown off them in a game, which is possible. I don't think you're going to see the next game they come out flat. And clearly, when they have an emotional win, even with a 1 week layoff, they're not going to come out flat and feel like they're on top of the world. Like, I think this is going to be a team that is very much day by day, handle business. Let's keep stacking them. Yeah. And it was a thoroughly impressive effort. I mean, they shot 40 something percent from 12 from 25 from 3.
Yeah, 48.
48. Oh, even better, 48. I think they shot over 50% from the field. Like you said, Lipscomb definitely had open looks that they missed, but they held them to a 17, I think, 0.2% clip from 3. Yeah. And then
38 for the game, which is what they wanted. 38.
And now 2 games in a row, too, you've had one of your studs not show up offensively and it not matter. Like, that's huge to me. And it's not that it didn't matter, but like those guys still did other things that helped you. Like Jackson Robinson, we talked about it last week, made some huge defensive plays in that Duke game that got him across the finish line. And then Andrew Carr, he was the plus-minus champ last night, or tied with Jackson at 29. Like Andrew Carr went 1 for 5 in the field and scored 2 points. And he's, they still won by whatever they won by. So it's like those are some really, really good signs that this team could beat you in so many different ways. And obviously they're going to shoot their threes and hopefully they're not going to make 48 every night, but they're going to make a good amount of them.
Yeah.
They're going to go really fast. They're going to make some stupid turnovers because they're trying to go too fast. Like, you're going to have those moments, but I also think you have a veteran group that is not intimidated by anything. They're not going to get too high or too low. And they're really good basketball players. That probably a lot of them were underrated going into this year. Because they were at either smaller schools or just none of them were at Kentucky. I don't think anyone on this roster was at a place that's even comparable to Kentucky to be respectful to any of their other schools. Like, your starting lineup is transfers from San Diego State, who obviously they've been really good the last couple of years, but we're not talking about a blue blood there. Wake Forest, BYU, Drexel, and Oklahoma. Like, you're not talking about transfer from Duke, Carolina, UConn, and Kansas and Michigan State. Like, it's very, very impressive what they've got going on. And I don't see them. Look, they have 3 more of these bye games. Jackson State's the worst team on their schedule this year. We'll see. I think they play WKU tonight in this, it's this little BBN round robin thing where like WKU, Lipscomb, and Jackson State are involved. Let's see. Did they play tonight? But they were like Jackson State. Yes, they did. They lost by 17 to Western. They are averaging under like 60 points a game. Like, they're just not a very good basketball team. They played Houston. That's the best team they played so far. They lost 97-40. They did play okay at Vandy. They lost by 13 at 94-81. They went to Xavier and they lost 94-57. Western tonight, 79-62. They lost to High Point and they lost to Southern Miss. So, like, probably the worst team on their schedule coming up Friday. That should be a game where you just have a lot of fun. Western, you play Georgia State. And then, that massive, massive week in December with Clemson and Gonzaga. And Gonzaga, man, they might be the best team in the country right now. They look really good.
And this is where Mark Pope is at. We talked about him, kind of trying to find stuff to critique. But I forget who asked him, but he said something to the effect that we weren't laser focused for 40 minutes. And that's straight out of the culture and the teams that he played on when he was here. Because if you talk to Cameron Mills and Derek Anderson and Walter McCarty and all those, Anthony Epps, had all those guys on, talked to all of them. Patino's thing, their thing, you're up 10, if the second unit comes in or first whoever, get that lead up to 15 or 20 before you come out of the game or by the next timeout. Increase the lead, pedal down. If you're up 20, push it up to 25. And that's where Pope is kind of starting to tighten the screws up on now. He said, we were not laser focused for 40 minutes. And there was a couple lulls where Lipscomb was throwing up bricks and missing and missing and missing. And Kentucky, it stayed like 21-10 for a long time it should have been 30-10 or 32-12, but Kentucky was in a little funk too. And I think that's some of what he's talking about. Laser focus for 40 minutes. So yeah, he's starting to pinpoint and tweak the little bitty, minuscule, little bitty deficiencies. That's what he's already kind of isolating.
And that's what the great coaches. Did you see what Dan Hurley said last night?
They
beat. I think they played A&M Commerce, that team that Kentucky played last year, and they won. I'll get you the final score. Let's see what the final score was before I go there. Okay, yeah, they won by 35. Okay, he came into the press conference and said it was a comically bad effort. Like, that's what the great coaches do, man. Like they will not take anything but greatness. And Pope is not a guy who's going to come in like Dan Hurley and come in really pissed off and be like talk negatively. Like, that's just not who he is. Like, I've learned when he's annoyed with something, he calls it like, "Oh, that was weird." He said that a lot after they played like lousy against Minnesota State, or he'll be like, "That's not us." Like, those are his sayings when he's I wouldn't say pissed off, but when he doesn't like something. Where it's, with guys like Dan Hurley, like Cal to an extent, Bill Self, those guys just come in pissed off. You got to know where but yeah, the best coaches out there in any sport, every sport, they're perfectionists, man. Like, they expect nothing but greatness out there. And I think Pope is on the trajectory to be there. I think that's what he expects, but man, like, they are a fun product. And, Lenny Akoff, the head coach over at Lipscomb, who you look at, he's all respect to him. He's an A-Sun head coach. That's the highest level he's been at. But over the last 6 years, some of the guys he's coached against are, Cal, obviously, a few weeks ago, he's coached against Jim Larinaga, Leonard Hamilton, who I know Florida State hasn't been good in a couple of years, but obviously one of the winningest coaches out there ever. Bruce Pearl, obviously outstanding. Will Wade, say what you want, really good coach. And then Eric Musselman, another really, really good coach. Yeah. And he said that was the best offense he's ever seen. Like that, and he had not met Mark Pope until last night. Like, that's high praise, man. Like, the coaches will come in every game when they lose, and credit Kentucky. Mark Pope, they did a nice job today. Lamont Butler shot great against us. Blah 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 blah. But it's completely different when you get a compliment like that. In my opinion, that was an eye opener, and you're starting to look. The night he got hired, there was a lot of negativity, and then I think that faded from the Kentucky fan side of things. But national-wise, it didn't. Yeah. He had to win a lot of people over. Mm-hmm. And I think he slowly did it throughout the offseason when you listen to him talk and you go watch BYU and what they were able to do in their first year in the Big 12. But they were still – I heard a lot of people say they would take – and I think Louisville's on the come-up too, but, like, you look at the two rosters, Kentucky's just better. I don't think there's question. I think you talk to a Louisville fan, they probably agree. And like people are saying, I'd rather have Louisville's roster, or I'd rather have. I have Kentucky as the 10th best team in the league. Like, I never saw that, and I think a lot of that was a disrespect to Mark Pope and not a big belief in him. That's changing. He coached circles around John Shire, who I know he's gotten a lot of. He's not Coach K, but like last year Duke was mediocre and he got him to the Elite Eight. Like, that guy can coach ball. Mm-hmm. He sat on the sidelines with Coach K and played for Coach K. He's gonna be able to coach ball. And I think you're just gonna keep hearing it, and you're gonna keep seeing him coach some pretty good coaches down the road. I really do. I'm thoroughly impressed from what I've seen from him as a coach, and then obviously what we hear from him.
No, and that eternally positive, the way he carries himself and all that intensity is below the surface and is strong. He doesn't freak out and just and scream and yell.
No, he doesn't scream.
There's little things you can kind of tell. I mean, he'll have a look, he'll have like his intense look. Or they did the joint interview during the Duke game with him and Shire with I think Jess Sims was a sideline reporter.
Mhm.
And she asked Shire a question first, and with respect for the program when we get to play and blah blah blah. And then she asked Pope the same thing, and he was complimentary as well. But at the end, he just said, all right, it's time to settle on the court. Let's go. And he was kind of walking off before it was even done. He was like, wasn't even finished talking and was ready to walk back to the Kentucky bench. Then he turned around and gave Shire 5. Kind of like, when the late Craig Sager used to interview Popovich.
Yeah.
And Popovich couldn't wait for the interview to be over. He was, already walking back to the bench and all that. Pope was kind of trying to step back. I was like, oh yeah, that's him when he's kind of fired up. That's him when he's amped, and it's still kind of low key, but it's bubbling underneath there. It's percolating.
He's a competitor, dude.
Yeah, man.
Look at the dogs he played with that '96 team, man. Some of the fiercest competitors. Obviously, probably I'd say from a coach. I mean, obviously, didn't see any of Adolph Rupp. There's not much video of him out there, right? We didn't see, even Joby Hall to that extent. But, like, to me, there's no coach that was more of a fearful competitor in this program's history than Pitino. Like, the guy that had just a killer instinct. I think early on in the Cal era, he had some of that, especially when they played Pitino. Mm-hmm. But I just don't think there was a coach out there in Kentucky's history that just wanted to go out there and win and was just as hard on his guys and as expected greatness to the extent of Rick Pitino. I really don't.
They were scared to death of him. Still are.
Exactly.
Cameron Mills is still scared of Pitino.
Yeah. So is Mark. And I think, Pope's personality, you would never assume it because he's like the nicest guy in the world. He's this happy-go-lucky guy, but
never cussed.
I didn't even know. That's really good perspective you had there. Being at the arena, I didn't even know they did a joint thing with them. I mean, you could just see the way he paces around the sideline, and he's locked in. You could tell it's a different side of him just from that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he does it a different way. He's not a screamer. He's very calm. He doesn't curse. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he's got that in him though. He's a competitor. That guy like a lot of it, I think a lot of it too, like a thing that was overstated. And I even got sick of it in the offseason, if we're being honest. It was just like, all right, let's get to the games. It was like, it's his alma mater. He was the captain. Like, he understands Kentucky. Now that they're playing and like, no, it mattered, man. Like, because you're held to such a standard here. Like, and I knew that. I knew all that. And I knew it would matter. It was just like, okay, we get it. Like, if that's the only thing that he has going for him, like, there better be more there. But the fact that that's just an add-on now, like, now we can see, okay, yeah, this guy's a legit guru of a coach. And I don't even think, I love the offense, but like and every coach has pretty much said it, like, they're better defensively than I think people thought they'd be. I think you knew what you were getting in Lamont. Ortega, to an extent, I think he's been better than expected. Defensively, I'd say he's even better, but offensively, he's obviously been way better. Mm-hmm. Amari Williams has held his own for the most part. Mm-hmm. Brandon Garrison's growing. You're seeing that kind of every now and then. You're like, oh yeah, that was a McDonald's kid. And then Jackson Robinson's been really good on the defensive end. So like, I think the guy and the way, they scout and the in-depth work they do there, like, I think you're just the fact that it's not it felt like the number one pro of Mark Pope. And I know there was a lot of talk about the offense, whatever, but the number one pro when they hired Mark Pope was, hey, Kentucky, this guy gets Kentucky. And now that's just an add-on and gives him like extra motivation.
Yeah.
Huge. And that it's look, it's 4 games. Duke is huge, but the other 3 are teams that pretty much every Power 5 team would beat. Mm-hmm. But the signs are there for this team to be special and keep getting better.
And that's what you hope for.
Yeah. And
when you saw the roster coming together, you're like, okay, these are good guys. Okay, he was solid at this other place, and I hope all this comes together the way he's hoping. And it looks like it's going to. The team chemistry is there, and now just the familiarity on the court, which is in the process of growing and continuing to grow. And this is what, once everybody got over the fact that Pope was the hire, then you start wrapping your head around, well, hopefully this is okay. This is what, all right. And now it's on its way. We got a big game, the big back-to-back with the Clemson Gonzaga thing, and then conference play, like you said, coming up first of the year. So, but if you got the blue colored glasses on when they had Kentucky ranked 8th in the conference, you're like, no, and as long as the guys aren't at each other's throats trying to kill each other, they should be better than middle of the pack in the league. And they are. And they're, like you said, impressing everybody, proving people wrong, nationally saying, oh, okay, gotta take them seriously. Wow. So it's going like we'd hoped, and they are so conscious of everything, so aware of everything, that when there is something that needs addressing, they're on it.
They're on it.
And even with this staff, these guys hadn't even coached with him, but they're working with him, and the cohesiveness of the staff is growing as well with the chemistry on the court with the players. It's all happening at the same time. It's crazy, man.
Yeah, and we've gone this long talking about Kentucky basketball. They have a guy who's shooting 78% from three, by the way. And it's not like he's taking 3 shots.
Yeah.
Kobe Bray is 15 for 9. Like, okay, he's gonna fall down. He's not gonna shoot 78 this year, I don't think. I mean, you saw even the Duke game. I think that was his worst game, right? So like when they play some of the better teams, like he's not gonna fall. Like he's gonna go back closer to the 49, but even then, to be a coin flip shooter, I mean, that dude is something else.
Reed Shepherd just broke the record, right? Last year.
I don't know if he qualified enough, which blame the head coach on that. But Kobe Bray will qualify.
Yeah.
Kobe Bray will qualify. But yeah, no, Reed shot like 52%, less than 10. And unfortunately, struggled when it mattered most. So people kind of forget that number.
Yeah.
But
that Oakland game, he couldn't buy one.
He was, and that's a guy who just put the weight of the world on his shoulders and tried too hard out there.
Same thing in the SEC tournament. They all just everybody got just locked up.
And that's another thing that is so good about the age on this team. Like, that's not going to happen in March. They might get beat. Like, someone might. I don't think it's going to be in the first round unless they end up like a 7 seed and it's an even matchup. But like, they might get beat. Like they might get beat by someone, but it's not. I don't think it's going to be because they were nervous or because they put too much pressure on themselves. Like, I just don't think that's going to. You've got, and Lamont Butler went to the national championship game and hit a freaking buzzer beater in the Final Four. He ain't scared.
He was in his bag last night.
Yeah,
if he starts hitting threes like that.
I was having a conversation with my buddy Jacob Polachek over at KSR Plus, and we were talking before the year, like, Lamont Butler is like a 35% 3 shooter because he was a 30% 3 shooter last year at the point guard position for this team. Look the hell out. And last night he's not going to go 3 for 3 every night, but if he's like a 35% shooter by the end of the regular season.
He scored at all 3 levels easily last night. He was everything you want your point guard to be doing. He was out there doing it, man.
No, so if he's like that, like every 4 games, and he's again like shooting at a 35% clip, like that's just another dude. Because you have to pick your poison. And Acock, their head coach, said that, right? He said that pretty much word for word. He's like, you got to pick what hill you're going to die on. And they one of the hills they died on was like, if Lamont Butler beats us, he beats us. If he's going to start beating teams, good luck. So, because Carice is a little bit of a erratic shooter because he takes some crazy ones. He does a lot to do it. So
he get them YOLOs sometimes. Man.
Yeah, but when he's open and they're good shots, he's making them. He was a 40% shooter last season. So pretty much everyone on that floor, minus Williams and Garrison, are threats from 3. So
and Garrison's a guy you don't mind if he shoots. And Williams, you don't want. I mean, he's not his shot. It is. But even in the preseason, The exhibition games, Garrison shot a couple, and hey, the shot looked good. Some rimmed out, some missed. He hits the long two against Duke. It's when he shoots, it's not like, oh no.
And he made it.
I'm cool with
I'll
him
tell you what,
shooting. I'm like, okay.
He was his pregame warm up. I was watching him yesterday, and he probably took like 23s, to finish his kind of shoot around before he went in, and they moved him around. And I counted, he made 11. Like he's trying hard, man. And he took one last night. I know it missed, but like he's trying to add that to his game too. So, until he has to prove it for me to put him on that list. But they just every guy who's not a 7-footer on this team or 6'10", whatever Garrison is, and Andrew Carr is 6'11", he could shoot.
Mm-hmm.
We know that. And Ansley Almanor has quietly played really, really well in his role. He's the guy when he's open, you expect him to make it. I think Colin Chandler showed you some good signs last year, and they don't really even need him. That's a luxury. Like at this point, if you have a rotation of 9, that's good enough. I know, Mark Pope played 11 at BYU last year. I think partially is because they didn't have the athletes Kentucky has. They needed to get some guys with the way how fast they played. Like I think these guys are better conditioned than his guys at BYU are, just because the athletes they are. Kentucky, BYU is different, is what it is. But a 9-man look, and I'm not trying to compare everything to Arkansas, but you see Arkansas struggling right now because I think they're more talented than they're showing, and they're going to be fine. Like Adu's playing out of his mind, but you look at them, they have 2 guys out with Adu and who's the other one that's hurt? It's Trayvon Brazil, and Cal decided to only take 9 Scully guys, and he doesn't play 2 of them. So they're down to a 7 to 6-man rotation. That's not.
He would do that here, and I'd be like,
he would have done that here. That's the thing. Like that would have been your roster here, probably. Honestly,
he cut it close in years past. I'm like, if you got spots, just
as long as the number, that would their roster. I would think that would be their exact roster this year. If that, like, maybe not Nelly Davis because they paid a fortune for him, and I don't know if Kentucky would have paid that. The chicken money. Got the Nelly Davis, but like, I think they would have got Jonas Adu. I think they would have kept DJ. They would have kept Adu, which would have been great.
John L. Davis.
Yeah, they would have kept Big Z.
Mm-hmm.
Like that would have been your roster, and I don't know if I want that roster. I mean, I think Boogie Flynn's a nice player, but he does. This is a much better, more fun product, and this is a product that I think gives you a chance in March, just because there's not going to be any unknowns when you take that floor wherever you end up starting your March Madness journey. There's just, I mean, again, Lamont. I'm pretty sure everyone that's a transfer outside of Amari Williams has at least, and Brandon Garrison. I think those are the only 2 that haven't played in the NCAA tournament.
And you mentioned Colin Chandler, that he didn't even need him, but you could tell to me it looked like they were playing him just to get him back in, because they threw him out there for a couple minutes against Duke. And
he wasn't ready.
He just he did a couple of jab steps and just he kind of froze up. And now you just see him, they're just working him in. We're just gonna do this now and have him ready for later. That looked like that was a thought process of his minutes last night.
Yeah. And look, I think that's the guy that they feel like is the closest of the freshmen to being ready to be impact makers. Clearly it is, because he's been off the bench in the first half of all 4 games so far, because I think those minutes against Duke came in the first half. But you saw him in the second half get more comfortable. I think he scored 5 points in a row. He was starting to let the threes fly. Mm-hmm. One almost went in. He had that really cool pass to Amari for a dunk.
Sports Center top 10 and all that kind of stuff.
That's just a luxury, though. Like again, you don't it would be great if Colin Chandler, Travis Perry, Trent Noah emerge and are ready to be impact makers this year. But you don't need them. And if you're 9 deep, and you might, because someone might get hurt. Like that could happen. Hopefully not, but it could.
It won't be for lack of effort from the coaches trying to develop them.
This team has a lot of. Again, they're not perfect. There's some clumsy turnovers in there that have to get cleaned up. There's still some the rebounding's been better. It's not perfect, and you worry when you start hitting the meat of your schedule. But there's a lot to like and be excited about.
Absolutely. So another one, like you said, another fun one coming up Friday night with Jackson State.
Yeah, that might be ugly for Jackson State. Though Mo Williams is their head coach. So that's pretty cool.
That's right. Oh, from the Cavs and Alabama and
NBA All-Star, NBA champ, and SEC Player of the Year. So that's a cool name. I'm sure there's some players on Kentucky's roster who were fans of his growing up. So that'll be a little bit of a cool one.
That's it. Yo, so we got another cool episode, man. Cat's Paws. Everybody check out Aaron's work there. Go and get you a yearbook.
Bestseller in a long time, so we appreciate that. And it feels like a year that you're going to want to hold on. A lot of people like buying the old. We started reselling the '96 one.
For real?
Yeah. We had. I think Daryl was selling some of those old ones, and people post them on eBay. The years that Kentucky, those teams like the '96 years, the champion teams, or 2009 Cal's first team, those are memorable years, and it's kind of like a piece of memorabilia from those years. So I have a feeling get them now while they're easy to get, because it's shaping up to be a really fun season. I don't know if they're going to win number 9 this year. I think it'd be a little crazy to think that, but this is going to be a team that I think BBN really enjoys, and they're going to be a team that is really well liked around these parts for a long time.
Yeah, be one of those fun rides. First couple of years. Of course, the Leitner shot against Duke, but 92, that was a fun season for Pitino. 93, the next year they go to the Final Four against Weber and the Fab Five. That was another fun season. Cal's first year was fun. Second year he's in the Final Four. That was fun stuff. Yeah, it's just nobody's saying or even expecting a title, but you're already en route to having a fun season.
This should be the most fun season they've had, I think, since if you consider, I would say the Bam and Fox year, just because they were so electric. But I guess you could say the Hero Keldon team too, because they were really.
So be a fun season, and a season where you let everybody know that you can be taken seriously again. That you're back among the contenders. You're back at the big table with the top 10 teams. Connecticut, here we come. Kansas, we're back. We had a lull. We were a little swoon, but now you kind of reassert yourself that you're back in the conversation again. This is the first year of coming back and staying back. So looking forward to it, and have a good game Friday. We'll see what happens Saturday afternoon, and we'll be back.
That'll be interesting.
There's another game Tuesday after that, and then we'll be back next Wednesday talking about all that and whatever developments happen in and around that. We already apologize in advance for Cowboys Giants next week. We apologize if Aaron and I, if we can flex it, if you and I can flex it, we would have already done it. So we're sorry, y'all.
Take your nap during that hour.
Absolutely, man. And I can't remember when I've always watched us on Thanksgiving, but
I'll be rooting against my team.
I think we so with the Cowboys. We're fighting for draft.
It's also going to be Tommy DeVito versus Cooper Rush.
Yes. Again, we apologize. And, our Bengals game, we get the Simpsons. We can't even get that flex because it's a Simpsons animated game. So there's that. This is where we are. Our stadium is falling apart, Aaron. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I know it is.
MetLife doesn't have stuff just falling down. Y'all are still good, but not us. We got
not great, buddy. Not great.
On that note, y'all, we'll hop on over here, but appreciate you tuning in. Those who retweet and follow and pop in, and y'all come in with comments. We appreciate all that too. So tell your friends about us. Leave a little review. Leave the 5 stars, rate it, all that good stuff. And keep on coming back to Bleed.com for another episode and future episodes of Believe in Kentucky. For Aaron, this is Vinny. We'll catch y'all next week.